this project took some time, and that's because it had to go through a series of quite detailed systematic steps. I've outlined them here, or Katie and I have outlined them here. First was to review organisational mission. A clear, direct and understandable mission statement must be developed so that specific goals can be drawn from it and it linked directly to an agency's overarching mission. We actually entered this project, a colleague of ours, Don Weatherburn, who may be known to a number of you, actually called it reconstructing reality. We actually listened to what police were saying about what they did in drug law enforcement and actually said this back to them, and they said, no, that's not quite what we meant, we mean this. And then we went through a process where we came to an agreement about our understanding and their understanding of what this drug law enforcement activity was about, and that helped to define what we call this organisational mission. It was about ensuring accountability structures are in place. New performance measurement systems are more likely to succeed when they are integrated with existing accountability structures such as formal review mechanisms. The third step was identifying key goals specific to drug law enforcement, which meant clarifying core business practices and determining the associated high-level outcomes that drug law enforcement hopes to achieve. Genuine input from all levels of staff is critical for ensuring validity in approach and long-term support. The fourth, which was identifying an appropriate set of measures and indicators, we needed managers to assess the big picture rather than a single area of performance. You get bogged down in what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. These tools help you actually see what you're doing in perspective and you understand how it relates to the broader organisational goals. That's when the true story lies. Assess the system as a whole through the development of a range of appropriate measures and indicators of performance that clearly link back to each high-level goal. Obtain feedback from stakeholders, which was engaging operational staff and other key stakeholders to carefully consider and discuss each goal and associated measure and indicator. Revising measures and indicators according to feedback acquired above, and obtain agreement on the key stakeholders on a final list of measures. So it was something that we didn't decide on, it was decided together. And that created and included new indicators as well. We wanted to provide staff technical training appropriate to needs. That meant ensuring that staff understand the importance of performance measurement and how to do it. Senior management must actively support the delivery of appropriate staff training and professional development opportunities. Learning is an ongoing opportunity, not a one-off intervention. Collecting and analysing key indicator data, which means designing a process for the collection and analysis of data, and an important consideration is the arrangements concerning the collection of internal and external data. This is where a lot of work gets really bogged down. It requires persistence, but it's solvable. It's not an impossibility. It can be done. Where data are obtained from external sources, it requires quite detailed negotiation with the relevant agency for access to these data. And initial negotiations really have to start at the highest levels to be viable. Disseminating results to operational staff and obtain feedback means circulating results of initial analysis to operational staff and other appropriate stakeholders and obtain feedback from them. This interpretation of the data and explanations for performance are essential. It's what it means. We've got to use it. We've actually got to understand what this stuff means and how we're using it in our daily work. And the only way to do that is to ensure we have feedback mechanisms going on. That's part of the business of communicating stakeholders with results to stakeholders, and in particular outlining new strategies that will be that we use to improve performance. And then it is not a one-time process. It's a loop. It's a continuous process. Now, there are always challenges implementing a new measurement framework. Key issues that may hinder implementation and that require careful consideration are likely to evolve, as I've already highlighted: data collection, information management systems, particularly the need to establish new IT interfaces to collect and collate data, which may be costly, organisational culture, especially resistance to change. These and other challenges can be addressed through a considered change management approach. While it's well recognised that imposing change within workplaces does not necessarily result in effective uptake and longer-term efficiencies, with adequate executive support, including structured input and realistic understanding of the time taken to adopt new practices, a successful transition is more likely to occur. The key element of effective change management, or elements of effective change management at this point, include understanding the impacts of that change, ensuring appropriate staff training is identified and implemented, and implementing an effective communication plan that provides a clear roadmap forward and ensures everyone is clear about how the changes affect them and what new skills they need and how to create a collective ownership of the outcomes. The framework's major strength is that it incorporates a range of measures that are, among other things, clear in their purpose, useful in gauging the effectiveness of drug law enforcement policies and strategies, reliable, and easy to interpret. Experience through the fieldwork sites demonstrated that the framework's measures are also easy to adapt to different settings and are, importantly, aligned with Australia's wider drug policy environment. The framework can form a useful review mechanism within formal operational policing reviews, such as, because we all call them different things, I won't throw a name in, but anyway. In Australia, drug law enforcement performance is not currently discussed in the same kind of detail as other types of policing during such reviews. In particular, the why questions are never fully addressed in these reviews, or very infrequently fully addressed in these reviews. So, for example, why was there a spike in the number of drug seizures during a given time period in a particular location? The framework permits exploration of the underlying issues that drive increases or decreased seizures. It aims to look at the whole picture rather than focusing on one part of the picture. As such, the most important aspect of the framework is that the measures mark an important shift in emphasis away from viewing drug seizure and arrest measures as the chief means for assessing drug law enforcement work performance. Instead, the new suite of measures should permit the monitoring of changes in Australian drug markets, providing a more powerful tool for assessing the real impact of drug law enforcement on illicit drug market activity. What we now have to watch and support is the process of full acceptance and implementation by each jurisdiction in Australia. Adoption of any new system takes time, particularly in agencies that have long histories of doing things in their own ways. However, this is something we're already seeing. We've been working with Victoria Police, we've been working with the Australian Customs Service. They've been testing a large-scale implementation of the systems, or their version of the system that we've been proposing, which is very encouraging. So what are some of the generic lessons? Because these are what we are proposing you consider as a starting point for a measurement system for serious and organised crime. Firstly, an effective performance measurement system must be based on a sincere desire to use timely and accurate data to improve performance. Where there is a concern about communicating unfavourable performance data, implementation of any new performance measurement system will fail. As such, measurement systems designed to focus on performance improvements are much more easily accepted than systems designed exclusively for accountability purposes, particularly in hierarchical command and control organisations such as law enforcement, although ultimately they serve the same function. Performance measurement must take place for the purpose of supporting management decisions and not just counting for counting's sake. If performance data are not used for managing performance, then the system merely becomes a costly and elaborate exercise in accounting. Lastly, superimposing an entirely new measurement system steeped in management jargon, a lot of the language I've been using to summarise this, almost guarantees the death of that system. In any case, to be effective, the system needs to accurately reflect the culture and practices of the organisation into which it's being introduced, even if it's part of an overall organisational change process. This is why the process that we employed of actively working with and engaging in a dialogue and being informed and told about what we'd got wrong and what we misunderstood was critically important. We had to understand and present this system in a frame or a language that was meaningful to those who are going to use it. So to this end, it's important to involve management through to operational staff right from the start in defining operational goals and in developing appropriate performance measurement systems. That helps to buy in staff support. So here we have some high-level lessons about developing methods for measuring law enforcement impacts on serious organised crime more generally. While most of these points are self-evident, allow me to highlight a few. Selecting an appropriate assessment method requires consideration of the characteristics of a program, of the purpose of assessment, of the availability of options, and of the views of key stakeholders. There is a need to find an appropriate balance between methods that seek to identify what works through rigorous scientific methods and those that place greater emphasis on developing a more detailed understanding of good practice and what can be done and in what circumstances. There is a growing recognition of the importance of theory, the T word. Programs, in fact, are theories, based on an understanding of why a problem has emerged and what can be done for it, done for whom in what circumstances. Impact assessments should be geared towards generating general lessons that can guide good practice, and generalisation is permitted through the application and testing of that theory. Don't waste time and money trying to measure everything. We know some things work and that they work well. Focus on learning about the innovative and novel strategies and examining things that don't seem to be delivering the results we expect. Ensure that both impact assessment process both the impact assessment process has effective feedback mechanisms so that the lessons learned are shared and the findings can be properly interpreted and applied in practice. Thank you.